How's it going, everyone? My name is Earlmeister, and in today's Meister meta breakdown, we are going to be covering one of the biggest, if not the biggest tournament in Lorcana with 290 players. It's a French tournament called Tournoi Ludotrotter Aulnay. I don't know if I pronounced that right, or what the Americans would say, Tournoi Ludotrotter Aulnay. What are we waiting for? Let's get on with it. All right, let's start with the top 8, and then we'll go to the top 1. We're gonna start with Theotime Bucket or Bourgeois. Butchet. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry. These are French last names and names, and it's very hard to speak French. But hopefully I said it right. Anyways, the most important part is going into the deck. So this deck is we can no longer really call this mid-range. Control, in my opinion. This is more of a mid-range control for me. It doesn't have any be prepareds. If you guys haven't noticed, this deck doesn't run any be prepareds. This deck is super heavy on the early to mid game. So we have Chernabog and Chernabog's followers, and then Rafiki, and then you Pinocchio, whatever they play, and then you remove it, right? It also has four copies of Cusco, the Madam Mims, of course, and then the Maleficent, and we have 3 Merlin Crabs to help these bodies over here trade on whatever the opponent is gonna play next. And we also have Minnie Mouse, of course, to apply a lot of pressure on the board. And this deck also doesn't run any Maui's Fishhook, if you guys haven't noticed. So this deck tries to win the board from turn 1 to turn 3, even on turn 4. And if they win it, they can freely play Jim Hawkins to even win the board more. Now, the thing is, if your opponent doesn't have anything on the board, or if they lose the board and Jim Hawkins comes, and now you have to deal with Jim Hawkins and then whatever was left on the turn 1 to turn 4, you can even play turn 1 to turn 3 and then straight up just play Queen's Castle. And even play Jim Hawkins plus Queen's Castle after that if you have enough cards, or if you have all the cards that you need to do that. But the point is, it tries to win the board early, and then it drops Jim Hawkins or locations afterwards, because once you win that, they have to deal with your characters, and then at the same time they have to deal with your locations. It's just too much pressure. Once you start winning, you just keep winning. And that is why it's not running Be Prepared, because you're fighting per tempo. And this is why I call it a mid-range control deck. It still has the control aspects of it with Lady Tremaine and Madame Medusa towards the end game. Towards the late game, it's still pretty strong, and you can bounce those back and forth, and you can remove multiple things. But the thing is, it's very mid-rangey in a way where you're trying to build ultra mega tonic tempo, and you're strong in the beginning to the mid game, but it's mid-range control because it's also still not falling off on the late game because of these cards right here. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. That's the most important part, is understanding that this is more on the aggressive side of control, which is the mid-range control, and it doesn't run Be Prepared. So I think that's the most important thing that we need to learn, or we need to know about this deck. All right, moving on from Theo, we're going to be checking out Van Tyen's Ultra Megatonic Steel Song deck. This one is just it's a lantern deck. It's what we've seen so far perform pretty well. I mean, Steel Song is performing really well too, but like this version is what we've seen so far perform good. It's pretty similar to what Brennan DeCandio is running, except for this one only has 2 Rapunzels and 3 Beasts. I believe some of his new version only has 2 Rapunzels, 3 Beasts as well. But usually you would see 3 Rapunzels and 4 Beasts on these versions. Other than that, there's really nothing different here. I just want to point out too that Benja is no longer attack. Like Benja is just a staple now. it's just a must run card, right? Because of all the items that's being run at the moment in the game. And when you're running Benja, you don't have to run 4 bare necessities. Of course, you still can, but it's not a must anymore. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. I'd like to point out as well that people start running like 2 grab your sword, sometimes 3, but most of the time you will only see 2, sometimes even 1. I think one of the reasons why as well is that these mid-range decks are already good against aggro. They're not a threat anymore for these, with all these big giant bodies right here that can just deal with the an aggro board. You don't really need that many grab your swords, and grab your swords is just pretty weak against either other mid-range decks or control decks. It just doesn't perform that well. I'd rather run an extra copy of And Then Along Came Zeus. But other than that, well done, Van. Great job on running this Steel Song Lantern. All right, the next one is since it's this is a French tournament, I'll try my best to have a French accent. This is by Gail Paris. I can't pronounce the R's, man. It's super hard. But anyways, Gail Paris. Steel Emerald discard deck. The one that we've been seeing a lot. We see this in the pack tournament a lot. There's not much that we can say about it except for one card. Rise of the Titans is an ultra megatonic tech that a lot of people have been running. Everything else here is the same. Prior Attack has been a regular card that people run on this deck, but it's this card right here. It's Pete the bad guy that we have, right? It's not something that you see all the time. I mean, I can see the reason why. Like, it's warded, it's always safe, and it also has reach. You know, if you have the spells to cast, you can cast that if you have to take out a big body or a location. But and also it can quest for 4 if you really need it to. But I don't see this card being played a lot. And I have a really, really big question for Gail. Gail, if you're listening to this, I would like to know why you were running Pete. It would be good information for all of us if you're willing to share. We really want to know what is Pete's role here, other than the ones that I mentioned already, and what is Pete aiming at? Like, is there a certain deck that you're aiming at when you decided you're gonna run 2 Petes in this deck? Other than that, this is what we see from Steel Discard. All these cards. This is really I mean, Friar Tuck is no longer a stranger on this deck, and like what I said, it's just Pete. It really is just Pete. Everything else here you see on the other decks. So I'd really love to know what the reason is behind that. All right, next up is Geoffrey Aubrey with the Ruby Amethyst. This one is pretty unique in my opinion. It's not something that I see all the time, so well done on creating a deck like this and doing well with it. This one is running 4 Pascals, and it's also very, very important that it's not running Mim Snakes. I think that the deck is trying to be as aggressive as it can be in terms of gaining lore, but then again, it also has a lot of like its control aspects still, right? I've seen fast decks like the one that we've seen before. It's running 6 drops with 3 Madame Medusas and 3 Lady Tremaines. This one has Maleficent on it, has 4 copies of Maleficent on it. But another important thing that I want to point out on this is it's very heavy on the locations with 4 Jim Hawkins and 4 Agrabah and 2 Queen's Castle. It has so much location. So I think it's trying to be as aggressive as it can be. I'm not sure though, without the snake, I'm not sure how good it would be with winning the board early, right? And it only has two Rafikis as well. It has 4 Merlin crabs, so that helps a lot with the Minnie Mouse, and Pascal can even trade as well. But other than that, it's probably trying to win the board early from turn 1 to turn 4, and then it plays Jim Hawkins with these ultra megatonic 2 lore, lore locations. It's not something that we see all the time, but props to Joffrey or Jeffrey. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced as Joffrey. Props to Joffrey for ultra megatonic placing at the top 8 of this tournament. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see a lot of variants on this tournament. It's really cool because like a lot of the times we see like North American what do you call this, meta, and most of Europe place almost the same as well, but the French meta seems a little different from everyone else's meta, and it's really cool to see these type of decks. Congratulations again, Joffrey. All right, this next deck is by Arthur Chambin or Chambin. Pretty sure it's pronounced as Chambin. It's an Amber Steel Lantern, but I'm very interested with this deck, and here's why. This deck is running cards that we don't usually see, like Simba Rightful King and Simba Fighting Prince. This deck also is fully cut Beast, Tragic Hero. It doesn't have any of that. Everything else is the same, except for it's not running Beast, and it's running Simba, Rightful King, and Fighting Prince. Analyzing this deck, I think the reason why is like it's playing around a lot against Medusa, because Medusa can't target the Rightful King. Also, another thing is at turn 5, if what do you call this? If they play Maui and they decide to exert another character, Simba can just kill the other character and say, okay, I don't have to deal with Maui this turn because I'm just gonna deal with the smaller dudes, and Maui can just sit there because the chosen opponent character can challenge during their next turn, right? You can just choose Maui over and over again. Also, you can choose cards like Robin Hood, like your opponent's Robin Hood, and it can't do much. There's a lot of targets that you can do with this Simba, and it's very interesting as well that this made it to top 4, right? It's really cool to see. I think that this might open a lot of room for Steel Song to be a bit more creative, because like a lot of the Steel Songs right now, they kind of look the same. It's either the Steel Song Flutes and then the Steel Song Lantern. Yes, this is a Steel Song Lantern, but it's running cards that we don't expect to see. Another thing is the Fighting Prince. It's also a pretty big body. It's 5/7. It can take out pretty much anything it wants. There's rarely any other cards that can, like, you know, that it can't take out. But the thing as well is that this is pretty flexible. So when you banish something, when you challenge someone, if you have another target, then you can deal 2 damage to the chosen characters, which is probably what you would usually do all the time. But it's also a great filter with your deck, because if you don't do that, you can draw 2 and then discard 2. And it's just a great way of finding your songs, I guess, and also finding whatever body that you need for the next turn. Other than that, everything else is the same. It's also running 3 copies of Stitch instead of 2, and only 3 copies of Queen. It's a very unorthodox, what do you call this, version of Steel Song Lanterns. But props to you, Arthur, for getting to top 4 with this. Very impressive, and I love seeing decks that doesn't look exactly the same as the other ones, even though I run decks that looks exactly the same as the other ones. All right. Next one here is by Matthew Perget. Matthew Perget. Matthew's list over here is a Ruby Amethyst control. It's basically the traditional Ruby Amethyst control that we see. The only thing that I would like to mention is instead of 2 Pinocchios, it cut itself into 1. And also it only has 3 Maleficent Crabs. 3 Merlin Crabs is something regular that we see. 2 or 3, unless it's like super heavy on the early game, then it would run 4. It's also running Minnie Mouse still. Everything else is the same. 2 copies, 3 copies for Madame Medusa, 2 for Lady Tremaine, and it only has 1 copy of Maleficent Dragon. It's not as heavy in the very end, but this is definitely still the control version of the deck. Especially it's running 4 Be Prepared. Other than that, nothing much going on with the deck. And it's also important to point out that it's not running any Maui's Fishhook. I just wanted to point that out. Other than that, like what I said, everything else is pretty ultra megatonic with the deck. It's something that we see all the time. Props to you, Matthew, for getting to top 4 with this deck. Congratulations. All right, next one. This one is a special deck for me. And it made it to top 2, and I'm really proud of you, and congratulations. Olivier Rofellos Arnold. Rofellos, congratulations for this deck. This is what you call a Emerald Steel discard, but this is the Floodborn discard. This one runs Bucky and 20 copies or 20 different Floodborn cards, from Jafar to Beast, Robin Hood, Tinkerbell, and Cinderella. This one, I'm very happy to see that it placed it at top 2, because I played a lot of this version of this deck on set 2. I haven't really played much of it on set 3, but I might try this out. So as we can as we notice, its old version was running Captain Hook. But obviously, you replace Captain Hook with Robin Hood. And also, it was running some Flynn Riders. Some people cut some Flynn Riders before. But yeah, this one doesn't have any Flynn Riders. Instead, it's running Ursula, which is very important, because Ursula just does what Flynn Rider does, except it doesn't quest for 2. But it just discards right away, which is what the Ultra Megatonic thing that you want from it, and you can see the opponent's hands. It's also running 4 benches over here against decks with a lot of items. Other than that, it's what we usually would see, and of course it's an upgraded version, because now we have this card right here. We have Robin Hood, which is a really nice upgrade. This version has fully cut Lucifer as well. Robin Hood is just better. And another thing that I want to point out on this is that it only has 8. It only has 8 uninkables. Because Robin Hood is here now, we no longer need the old Flynn Rider. And it also cut like the other Flynn Riders as well. So we don't need to run the 4-cost Flynn Rider. It's just too greedy. I mean, it can be fast if you successfully discard your opponent's hand, but this is just a much safer way to play it, and more solid and smooth, in my opinion. First of all, less uninkables. Second of all, bigger, better bodies. It's just cash money, honestly. I also like to point out the improvise here. I think this is really good, because the improvise can buff this Jafar right here for better trades. It can buff the Robin Hood as well. Beast, if it's not damaged, then you can buff it as well. Tinkerbell and Cinderella too, if you even need it. And it's just extra reach as well for you if you need to remove locations. I think this is a pretty ultra megatonic card for a deck like this. And it also just helps filter the deck. It's a +1 strength that replaces itself, right? I really like that. Other than that, it looks very solid to me. It's something that I definitely want to play. So congratulations, Olivier Rofellos Arnold, for getting top 2 with this deck. Very well done. It's very nice to see decks like this making it to top 2 or top 8 in general. All right, last but not the least, we have an ultra megatonic Emerald Amethyst. It's not aggro, guys. It's not an aggro, folks. Stop calling it aggro. It's a mid-range deck. It's a mid-range deck. It has its aggro moments in the beginning, but this deck has evolved already into a mid-range deck, and it's a very solid one. Congratulations, Kevin Cheech or Chiche. I don't know which one it is, but I hope I pronounced it right. Either one of those. Doesn't really matter. What matters is, Kevin, congratulations for the first place, top 1 on this tournament with this deck. It was only a matter of time before this deck gets a top 1 win on one of these tournaments. We already seen it consistently on top 8, especially on top 4. We've seen it the last couple weeks, and this week it's the top 1. I don't see a lot of what do you call this? I don't see a lot of text on it. It's literally exactly the ones that we see from the other decks. Maybe it's one copy of Pinocchio. Sometimes they would run 2 copies of this. Other than that, the deck is exactly what other people brought. It's just the pilot was really, really good, and Kevin obviously did well to get to top 1. There's really not much to talk about this. We have the Chernobog's followers, Curse Merfolk, something that we already see, Rafiki, yep, Flynn Rider, Madam Mim, Pinocchio, Ursula, Kit Cloud Kicker, Madam Mim, Maleficent, Merlin, and then the legendary Ursula, the Merlins as well, and then Isma, because they decided that they are not going to run Genie on the job anymore. Instead, they would run Isma, because Isma is just a better Genie. Honestly, it's inkable and it's more flexible. You can get draws from it, or you can remove your opponent's thing from the play, even though you're going to give them 2 draws. But you got to choose your moments with it. But it's just flexible in general. And then the songs over here with Friends on the Other Side for more draw, for better tempo, Mother Knows Best, and then the Queen's Castle. Other than that, everything else that we've seen in this deck is exactly what we see on other the other Amethyst, Emerald. I'm gonna start calling it mid-range, Bounce mid-range, or we can just call it Bounce. So there's no argument on it. Congratulations again, Kevin, for getting top 1. That was an ultra megatonic performance by you. All right, everyone, that would be it for today's Meister meta breakdown of Tournoi Ludotrotter Aulnay. The French tournament with 290 players on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this and you learned something from it. It's really, really nice. I just want to say that it's really, really nice to see all these different decks making it to top 8, and even the ones with the same colors on it, they have different variations and playstyles. I like that a lot, and this is what I wanted and waited for from Disney Lorcana. I knew set 1, set 2 is not going to be able to do that. It's just the history of card games. There's not enough cards on 2 sets. But when the 3rd set came, and especially Ravensburger has mentioned before that they planned all of this together. They didn't make it all together, but they planned all of it together. Now we're seeing what Ravensburger was or envisioned for Disney Lorcana. And there's a super healthy meta that we have, and there's also variety of decks that's just being played left and right, and different variations of the combinations of the colors. It's so nice to see. Other than that, again, I hope you guys learned something or enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to smash that like, subscribe, bell button, and also comment down below your thoughts or your opinions, or just leave an emoji. Or if you have any questions, because it helps when you comment. Other than that, I say other than that a lot. I don't know why. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.